do we get like a pop-up or there it goes?
Your total is 11.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thanks everybody for coming. It's good to see folks again, even if it's virtually. It's been a it's been a time since we gathered last, so this I think will be a good and very needed conversation. Before we get the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from last meeting.
Please remember
I've
to
been
take
looking
your
up.
seat.
I've been looking over them. Does anyone have any objections or corrections to the minutes?
Enter phone number, then touch enter.
Okay. If not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second from Tom.
All right. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye, or I post aye in the chat, or however you would like to indicate.
Aye.
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 Yep.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. All right. Sounds like the ayes have it. So the minutes are approved. And next up on the agenda, we have a public comment section. So before we get going with the rest of the agenda, is there anyone online that was signed up or would like to comment from the public?
We had one person sign up for public comment, so Kellen Macbeth.
Thank you. And my apologies. I thought the meeting was in person, and so I'm on my way back home from the county office building. So I'm not on camera because I'm in a lift. So my name's Colin Macbeth. I'm the president of Equality Arlington. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of what we've been pushing the county board on over the last few months, and that's to adopt a resolution supporting the LGBTQ plus community and sort of committing to pursue whatever legal options they have to combat discrimination and unconstitutional attempts to take away our rights that may come from the new administration or at the state level. I think, as you know, you heard before the meeting started, there were many of us who, about 70 of us, who attended the county board meeting on Saturday, and we're pretty disappointed with the response from the county board, which I think is different from what we've heard, individually from county board members. But I think we're hoping that the county manager and the county board will take whatever legally available options they have to ensure that the LGBTQ plus community is protected over the next 4 years, and that it actually pursues or looks into what those options are instead of just reacting as terrible things happen, proactively doing research to find out what authority they do have to potentially shield or protect its residents. So that's something that I think Equality Arlington believes very strongly in, and we're going to continue to work towards and encourage the county to move forward with as well. And also very much looking forward to the county to step up its planning and what it plans to do for World Pride, whether that's a public art campaign to show its support for LGBT plus residents and what we do to support the community, but something more than a coordination role, and more than what the county has done in the past. So that is what I have to say. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you very much. And yeah, I echo a lot of those sentiments. Looking forward to getting to work on this side and seeing what we can do. Yes, Tom, you have your hand up.
Yes, if I could, I had a question for Kellen. Have we, community, drafted perhaps a list of specific concerns or potential threats or things, actions that we either have seen or potentially could see from the new administration that we would like the county to look into protections against, rather than sort of just putting a request out there that is undefined? Have we given a list of things that we think we would like researched? And could that potentially be helpful in terms of guidance, in terms of the research that we think might be helpful to the community?
Samantha, is it okay to respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we're working on that. We've talked about a couple of specific things with the county board members, in one-on-one or 2-on-1 meetings. Equality Arlington is meeting with our sort of statewide and national partners, especially this coming week, to assess the impact or potential impact of some of the executive orders coming out. I think at this point it's tough because they're so new, and I think not even a lot of the federal government is even aware what the full impact on their specific departments and agencies are. So it's been difficult to say very specifically, like, this is what we want you to do in response to X, Y, and Z, because the X, Y, and Z is evolving on a day-by-day basis. So, but that is something that we are hoping to do soon once we have a bit more analysis and a better sense of what the real implications of some of the executive orders will be. So, hear you, and that is what we're hoping to do as soon as we get more information.
Hopefully a little bit of what we can do tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else before we move on? All right. Well, then, Kellen, thank you very much. It's good to know, and look forward to doing, hopefully, some of that parallel work here. So before we move into the discussion questions on the agenda, I just wanted to take a moment to say a couple things before we launch into our discussions. And first is just an apology for not getting some communication documents out sooner. There was a lot of traveling and organizing this last couple of months that was a bigger lift than I expected, but that will get better in the future now that my schedule has calmed down a little bit. But I just, before we began, wanted to reiterate how glad I am that this group exists and how important this work is going to be, because I'm sure I don't need to tell y'all what's been going on, but just as I'm thinking about it, there are forces now with a lot of power looking to roll back the clock, looking to go back to times where even more explicitly the laws in our society privileged cisgender, heterosexual, white patriarchs and subjugated every other force, every other group to the way that society is run and organized. And so we, in these meetings and in this community, need to put our heads together, and we need to make sure that we have the resources we need to fight back against this, and that we have the community that we need to fight back of this. The resources, knowing what the threats are, keeping an eye out, communicating, and researching and communicating what needs to be done to combat these, hopefully before the effects start happening, and then holding leadership, holding the county, holding community leaders, holding each other accountable for getting those done, because they're not going to happen on their own. Any opportunities to do less, people will tend to take, and so there's going to be work for making sure the information's out there and that we are holding each other accountable for doing the actions. And then the community, we're going to need us. We're going to need each other. We're going to need each other to help each other with whatever aid needs to be done, whatever information needs to be shared, whatever resources we can share with one another, and then just to keep joy, to keep motivation, to keep community, to keep each other reminded that this is all worth fighting for. And so that's going to go beyond what just we can recommend on a legislative and policy method. That's going to be being community leaders, and it's going to be getting to know each other and getting to know our communities and making sure that we all stay on the same team. So it's really good to be working with you. I am really looking forward to building up the fort, so to speak, and just holding each other and our communities in accountability to make sure that we are not complying in advance and throwing rights and throwing people under the bus that we do not need to, and putting up a force to make this to fight it. It's going to get rough, and to make it a little less rough for each other, however we can. So that being said, there's two discussions on the agenda today. We want to talk about World Pride, and then just kind of open the floor to what the biggest concerns are, and then do some brainstorming in the topics. And what I'm hoping to accomplish at the end of this meeting is to have groupings of areas of concern and types of action, and see if we can form some subgroups and get some task force together to kind of make sure that people are monitoring, people are getting things done, we are making the recommendations to the county and to the community that we are put together to do. So as we're going, I'm going to be kind of keeping a running list of these things, and when we leave, we will have some teams, and we will have some dates, and a little better idea of what we're doing going forward. I know we had kind of an open, what are you hoping to achieve? What are your areas of concern at the first meeting? But the playing field's a little different than it was when we had our first meeting, and so I think it's good to just kind of revisit some of those and kind of get fresh thoughts about how we're feeling, what we're worried about on the table. Any, I guess, just before we move on to the formal discussion topics, does anyone have a thought, reply, anything they'd like to share before we move on to the World Pride conversation?
Samantha, I have a quick question.
Yes.
So maybe I just missed it. Maybe I'm not great with Google, but after the last meeting, were we given the contact information for our fellow participants, and or is there a way that we can, even after we kind of subdivide in this meeting,
Right.
stay in contact with each other in between meetings?
Yeah, let's see. Was there I know like the email invite has all of our emails on it. It'd probably be good to make a contact sheet that we can share with each other that has like your preferred email, preferred phone number, and at the very least that we'd be able to get in contact with each other. Maybe we should, I don't know, we'll have email change. Should we make like a WhatsApp group or like a Signal channel or something? But I think if we get that sheet together, that's a good idea. I will take that away and kind of make sure that we have that, and we're not just kind of pulling emails from the invite. Cool. So after this meeting, I'll send like a little Google form or something, and see if people want to put like the number you'd like to be contacted at, if you would like to be included in text groups, and then if the email that's on the invite is the one you'd like to use. Cool. Okay. So the first discussion topic is World Pride, which is going to, which I think is, I'm looking forward to it. It is more needed now than ever, and it's also gonna be a bigger lift. There's a little more stuff to think about than I think there was. Like Kellen was saying in that speech, I'm hoping that we get. I want to make sure I want Arlington County to participate, right? Not just facilitate and have hotels. I would love to see us participate. And so, as far as World Pride goes, do we know? Is there a? I know there. I've seen some meetings. I've seen some groups. There's been some conversations. Is there? Is there a county like? Is there a task force where heads are getting together from like the county and the bids and the community on kind of what World Pride looks like? I know there's lots of work groups, but does anyone know kind of what the current state of World Pride organizing is at the county level?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to raise my hand. This is Kimberly from the
Oh.
College Creative / Arlington Pride. We
Yep.
do have a meeting on Wednesday where all parties are meeting. There's participants from the county. We work meeting with Destination DC, the hotels, and Capitol Pride to speak, because everything has been kind of held up. Everything's been kind of quiet. I think they've been trying to formulate how DC is going to move forward first, and we're kind of like an afterthought. An afterthought.
Yeah.
And because how things have changed, I think we're all kind of waiting to see, because truth of the matter is everything costs money. Even
Right.
even on a volunteer basis, everything costs money. And us throwing Pride the past 3 years have realized like we have to like be very careful with the events that we have going forward and how we organize. So we have a presentation for Wednesday. It's still going to be very, very limited because we don't want to schedule things that would take. We don't want to schedule things that would be in the middle of a Capitol Pride's marquee event that would take away. But from what I am gathering, their hotels have filled, and so the overflow now is time for us to really solidify what we're going to do moving forward, because now the overflow is getting ready to come into.
Mhm.
Just to follow up on that, this is Destiny Esper. I work for Arlington Economic Development. So Arlington Convention and Visitors Service is actually organizing that. I believe it's the same meeting that was just referenced on Wednesday. There are about 166 people on that invite list. So that's from folks across the county and various organizations, as well as working in the county. We are getting together on Wednesday. Kind of rallying everyone together has taken a bit of time.
Yeah.
And some folks have honestly not been as responsive as we would have hoped. But at this time, and in speaking to folks, and apologies for the background noise, I am at a thing with my child. But we don't have anything that's necessarily being organized event-wise, like from Arlington. It is a lot of like coordination. It is a lot of working with other groups. That said, I've spoken to several folks at AED, and if something should come up, we would be happy to try to find ways to support that, to, you know what I mean, leverage that, share that across the county, figure out funding, et cetera. So if there is something that comes up in this group, we would love to support that in the ways that we can, depending on what it is. But at this time, there's nothing to our knowledge that the county specifically is doing outside of what might be done in, employee resource groups or like kind of smaller groups.
Yeah, because I know, like at the Pride level, I know the Arlington Pride that's happened a couple times is that the private group that's been running it. I imagine I don't know what if any coordination looks like there, but I'm thinking if like the two things on my mind, and I think I'd like to open up to kind of knowing that. So thank you for that information. That's good to know kind of where the playing field is. I know a lot of a lot of what Arlington is doing is, like you said, spillover hotels for DC because DC is going to be full during it. The things that are on my mind would be one, just visually, right, on the county level, participating in the, like, are there like, well, can we get some like welcome World Pride attendees banner? Can we get more get more rainbows all over the place than we usually have? Are there public art projects? Are there, we got we got the rainbow crosswalks by Freddy's this last year. Can we get some more of those? Can we get a mural somewhere? Like, is there a way to visually, at the very least, for Arlington to look like World Pride's going on? And then the other thing, because I imagine both, because this is, it's more practical, I think, to coordinate this way, and that a lot of Arlington businesses, a lot of communities, a lot of the libraries will probably be doing Pride themed events. It would be great if there was a central place to find these, right? Like, you can register, like, hey, we're doing a Pride thing. There's this happy hour that's happening at this place. The library is doing this speaker series. Just kind of, I think, that's more of a facilitating role, but a place, a central place that you can see what's going on. And I think that also helps because, we don't know how things are going to go on a federal level. But in my head, I think it's probably good to have a plan B on a lot of official things. And because even if some big hammer comes down that makes it hard for makes it hard to do official sanction things, the community still, like, we're still gonna have World Pride parties. And so a place to organize that, I think would be is something we should recommend. But I just want to open the floor to, I guess, what would y'all like to see Arlington do? How would you like to see Arlington participate in World Pride? Let's see, Tom. It says you have 2 hands up. That's exciting.
Oh, wow.
I see a 2-hand count by you. I've never seen that before.
I just wanted to mention that in terms of sharing information about events that are taking place or planned, that if I remember correctly, the Capital Pride Alliance website does allow community partners or organizations in the community. You don't have to be participating in Pride per se, but community groups can post community events at any time to the community calendar on the website. So it may be, and not everybody may know about that. So it may be part of our communication with groups within the county. We may want to share, along with other places they may publicize their activities, to also post it there, because that calendar will probably be a key way that visitors to the city would find out about local events. So again, that's not something that we necessarily, we don't have to do anything with the calendar, but just letting people know it's there and how to use it.
Right, yeah, and encourage.
Along with whatever we might do here in Arlington.
Yeah, and encourage all the people doing stuff to
yes,
do that. That's
exactly, yes.
I just wanted to say that I sit on the board of the National Landing Bid, and they just today sent me an email that they've tasked someone to be involved in the World Pride, and they're suggesting that I set up a meeting with them to sit down and talk about ideas. Also, Kimberly, I would love to get more involved with the Arlington Pride and collaborate on stuff this year if possible.
Absolutely, Fred. We just met with National Landing the other day. We did have a suggestion as far as how to get information out there, working with the hotels so that when people fly in, come in, they will see all of the events that we have planned. We did see that there was a landing page for World Arlington Pride involved in World Pride. So hopefully we can grow that, get that information out there. Of course, we have our websites. It will be updated soon. We have our social media pages. We will also notate any other events or any other group meetings for the county.
Right.
Thinking about this sort of at a higher level, one of the things that I personally have been trying to deal with is we sort of look at what's horribly happening in the country right now, is focusing on, kind of what you can do in your own community. How can you create a safe place? How can you have impact in your own, close-up world, while the rest of the world is it just feels like it's beyond help. And to that end, Arlington traditionally has been a safe, welcoming place. And, a lot of people are going to be coming to the DC area with a lot of concerns about the environment in the political environment in DC, and whether there people are going to feel welcomed and kind of all of that. And I just feel like at the core of what we do, I think we have an opportunity to underscore that right next to Washington, D.C. is a community that has historically been progressive, accepting, caring, it's safe, and that the ways that we treat one another in Arlington are vastly different from the tone nearby. And my feeling is that whatever we do in terms of its communication, whether it's visibility. I think it needs to sort of get at this point that there is a place that is very close to the Capitol that has values that are very different from what people might expect. And I think that's it's a comforting thing, and B, it's would be, I think, a welcoming thing.
A lot of people fly into Reagan Airport and they
Yeah.
come right into Crystal City. I think that Crystal City should be the welcome mat for World Pride. I've been talking a bit about banners. They did do Pride banners for me on 23rd Street last year, but I'd love to get them throughout National Landing, for instance.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of I liked talking about like that it's been historically welcoming. I like the ways to put that on display. That's really, I like that a lot. I see Destiny's comment in the chat about the tourism team being able to work with some of that. And I know that there's that. I know the Rainbow History Project has their Pride, their Pride history displays in the work, and so if we can, there's probably information there we can share. So that's I like this conversation. Kim, is your hand up again?
No, I think that was from
Okay.
earlier.
Okay, yeah. Let me see if I can clear, because it's just showing like me a count of how many times everyone has raised their hand, and that's not that's not as helpful as active.
Actually, what it is the order that they raise their hand.
Ah, okay, that's good to know.
Hey everyone, Lamont speaking here. I just wanted to say, I just wanted to echo what Freddie and James talked about in terms about messaging and also, creating that atmosphere of inclusivity. I wanted to add that I think, this being the first Pride, as we have changed direction in terms of administration and the tone and the energy of our country. I think it's very important to not only showcase that we are welcoming, but actually put a face to our community. Something that happened during this past election, I felt like it was very much an othering of our community in terms of we are people on the fringes or on the outskirts without really the representation of who are the people who are the people in our communities, because it's men, it's women, it's people of all different backgrounds, age groups, and we're being labeled as as others. So any type of organizing or events, I really think it's important to articulate truth and articulate it in an authentic way through information, data, but also through personal testimonials of people within our community. So like that, we can have a face and show how much we contribute in our individual ways. So any type of organizing or coalescing around these type of things that put a face to Arlington and how we can participate in the larger picture of World Pride. Because when you talk to some of people about World Pride this year, they're seeing it as a protest, right? So if this is going to be the first World Pride during this administration, what does the protest look like, right? Like how does that, and how do we still include people that might not know about our community because they're only following, influencer on social media that is just, spewing hate or things that they don't really understand. So I think there is opportunity to, articulate things authentically so like that people can start to understand and see that, hey, maybe I've been tricked, or maybe I don't fully comprehend what's being told to me from the top.
So when you say that, do you have a type of like activity, type of program? Like what sort of stuff are you envisioning that accomplishes that?
Things that could help. I know on a media standpoint, there are like infographics that we could share in terms of like facts about people from our community historically, what they've done in the past, how we have gotten to where we are today. That type of information sharing that is easily digestible. I'm thinking like carousel posts about different figures in Arlington and what Arlington government has done in terms of, like how we have pushed the needle and become a more inclusive space. I know in the past there have been different metrics in terms of how inclusive our different neighborhoods are, the percentage of LGBTQ people within the different bids is another thing that would be, great to see, to just, continue to show that, hey, we're not just, we have the rainbows, but we also have the data to back it up, right? And then when visitors come and they come to our place, they're encouraged to say, okay, this is more than just, the forefront of politics within the United States, but it's a place where, anyone can come and feel at home or feel like they can create a home, whatever that looks like to them. So that's one example. And another thing is testimonials from actual residents, across age groups and backgrounds in terms of, their experiences living in Arlington, the positives. That's another, those are just two things out of my head. But I think if we're able to display it in a very polished way, using a variety of those things, people could then share it. And that creates a type of momentum and energy.
James, you have your hand up?
So I was thinking about, okay, how do we communicate with people? So if folks are flying in, as Freddie noted, a visual sense of welcoming, a visual sense of place is really, that's a clear way to get across information. But beyond that, I'm wondering if if we can't create some sort of a repository for information about this, that we can engage people either through the hotels or some other way, to provide a link to say, even before you come, here's a place that you're coming to, particularly people who are staying in Arlington. Here's a place that you're coming to. Here's what it's like. Here's a website with either historical information or other, that some way for people to easily gather this information on your phone, that's intuitive, that sort of syncs with how people get and share information. But I think we start with some sort of central repository. Perhaps we can engage the library with help on that. But then the idea is, how do we then provide an easy way for visitors to access it, and what tactics? And again, it just seems to me, Visitors Bureau, the hotels, in some way to leverage their direct connections with people arriving to provide those links.
Supposedly there is already a landing page for that they've just started, that I guess I don't know how the rest of us will be able to add information to it, but when I think it's conducted by the tourism department. But there is a landing page. We when we met with National Landing, we did see that.
Is there a way for Arlington to have a link to the Capitol Pride website? Maybe something like that? I don't know.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're getting recommendations for a handful of groups, right? There's stuff we would like help from the libraries on, stuff for the library pages. So I think organizing, I think putting our heads together, probably in a separate call to kind of like get this down to like to come up with the people that need to be engaged. Some of this might be happening already. It sounds like this tourism board is doing a lot. And so kind of figure out what the I don't know who can help with what and who needs to be talked to. Sam, you got your hand up.
I do, but there's a couple people before me. So
there.
if one of them wants to go first.
It's not showing me that correctly. Okay. Caitlin. Okay, there's the counts. Caitlin.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know, Sam, as you were saying, and this is something I was thinking about as we were talking about World Pride, it seemed um, that, trying to get Arlington County just more involved. So, one of the things I was thinking about, is it possibly feasible, or, for this like advisory committee to, like, be active, and our members that are able to, right, like, be out and about, like, during the parade, showing like, hey, you know what, we are here at Arlington County, we have this committee, like, we've been working on this. Besides, like, messaging and communications, I don't know how feasible that would be, because I mean, we could also, I can use my vehicle, which we can, like, decorate, and I can put, like, speakers in the back of the trunk. But, like, that's something maybe to show that's, like, more of just like a visual and communication messaging, just like, hey, you know what? Like, yeah, we are not going to, as a county, we're not just going to stand down, like, we are going to be fighting this administration. So, I mean, I just don't know how feasible that is, but that was, I think, maybe one way is we can majorly maybe get involved, but again, I just don't know the logistics and
Right, you're right. So like it might be a little a little late and a little expensive for like a full on like float, right? But like, are there are there events that we can like put a table at or something? Just kind of like have a, by the way, this exists and here's what we're doing.
I'm happy to hop in now real quick. I was just going to say, in terms of the public art campaign, so I live off Columbia Pike, and there is an excellent community artist over here who has a studio here, also does work in the Ballston area. And she is really, really great at like community engagement. They just finished like a multiple year long photograph series of residents of Columbia Pike. And it was really fascinating to learn more about like who lives in my neighborhood. So if we were trying to like talk about who's here, like I would just love to help facilitate and get whoever needs to be connected to her, because she can certainly be useful for like, if we're trying to show happy queer stories from Arlington, or we want to have some like art from like local high schools and stuff like that. Yeah. So just putting that plug in there.
Okay.
Samantha?
Yes.
Diane Crash. I'm
Hi.
the library director. Hi.
Yes.
So, as far as I'm aware, we have not had a conversation yet with the county manager and all the department directors about what are we doing for World Pride and who's responsible. So I know there's a call on Wednesday. I'm on this call, but the calls to date have been more coordinating, like who's doing what, and not necessarily a call to action. I've lost the thing here. Sorry. Not necessarily a call to action. So I'd be happy to facilitate that conversation to find out just what exactly county manager is thinking about, if he's thinking about it, what other departments. So that's, I can take that piece on. To
Okay, that would be
Freddie's
great.
comment earlier about National Landing, I completely agree. It is kind of the gateway to Arlington from National Airport. I'm old school. I can't call it Reagan Airport. So the idea of banners and, welcome World Pride, I think is great. And I'm just wondering, why stop with National Landing? The Columbia Pike has a very active bid. Ballston has a very active bid. Approaching them as a group and saying, can you get on board with supporting Arlington being a welcoming place, honoring its history as very progressive and welcoming and accepting, and also recognizing our role in this current time, which is a little less welcoming. So those are a couple couple of
Mhm.
thoughts. As for the library, I mean, we can, we have a lot of flexibility. We can host art exhibits, we can host speakers. I'm going to put banners and flags at all of my locations. So that's not hard. I think it would be really helpful to know from this group what is what is it we're trying to do. Like,
Mhm.
do we want to be loud and proud and go be in the parade and march and have banners? Is it an education opportunity? Is it both? Because we can do ideas all day long, and a lot of
Yeah.
them are easy and some are more difficult. Sure, I'm not in charge of the art truck, but whoever put that in, Candace says, yeah, we can ask AED. They could devote the art truck. So I think if we have a clear understanding of our statement, like what we really want to do,
Mhm.
when World Pride is over, what will we have learned, or what do you think we have been able to achieve? That would be helpful too, in recognizing that some activities might be more impactful than others. Everything takes time,
Yeah.
everything takes effort, some things take money. If we want to make an impactful statement, what's a handful of things that would achieve that? And I absolutely, again, about the bid, 100%, and I think we should include all the bids. I will go to the county manager and say, what are we doing? And I'm responsible for the library, so I can undertake things on my own, but I can also loop in some of my colleagues to see if they want to do some things jointly, like Parks and Rec. All right,
Diane, to
go
your
ahead.
point, I think it's a good one. This, what do we want to do? And it goes back
Yeah.
to the point that I made earlier. I feel like, again, if we're thinking about how do we reinforce the safe place that is Arlington to our own community, to people in
Yeah.
Arlington who are scared, how do we reinforce to people who are coming to our community that this is a safe, supportive place? And it's, again, it is sort of like focusing on the micro rather than the macro, and creating a sense of and communication of safety and love and support in a very difficult time, in an area where we can control. I mean, we can control how we talk about ourselves. We can control how we do things visually, that sort of thing. But the idea is to create this awareness both to Arlingtonians and to visitors, that, okay, you may be crazy where you're coming from, but there is a safe place, and you can take comfort that there are safe places, in the country and even very close to DC. Secondly, just as an FYI, and Sam, I think I passed this along to you. I ran into Takas a couple of weeks ago, and one of the first things that he started talking about was World Pride, and this very rah, 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 rah about how we really have to engage in that. He just seemed to be really on a tear about that. And, when a politician's on a tear about something, it doesn't necessarily come with follow-up. But I, for what it's worth, he did bring that up to me.
Nice.
Cool. So to bring this conversation home, I think something we can do here, because I like that charge to, coalesce this into like what are we trying to get out of the World Pride participation. And then I've got a few themes of groups that are involved, some that we have more direct control over, some that we have people that can go talk to. And I think I may just ask some folks on these action items to report back at a later time on how this is going. But first, I want to do I would do a little bit of that conversation, because I like because right, there's the two audiences. I like that split into the two audiences for World Pride, right? The LGBT community in Arlington that is kind of freaking out, as a lot of us are, all over the place. And then right? Because you have three, right? You have and then you have the not queer, the non queer community in Arlington, and then you have the visitors. And so, to to the Arlingtonians, it is, I think it's pretty clear. Like, the message is, you're safe and we're fighting for you. We have each other, and to the extent that every organization can say we have your backs, and how that's the message we want to get out there. And then to the visitors, like you said, this is this is a historically safe and welcoming place. And then I think the addendum there is like, and that's also a good thing, and one of the things that makes Arlington great, and we're proud of it. To show like, hey, this is what it can be like when you're welcoming and when you're supportive. And then I think to the people, to the rest of the folks in Arlington, in my head, I'm thinking some kind of message of, the message of, this is worth fighting for, because I think the temptation that a lot of leaders, a lot of community folks, a lot of people who are not queer, or the people who are doing the negotiating right now, is I think there's an undercurrent in a lot of these negotiating tables of how big how big a deal is this? How much can we afford to compromise here? And I think Pride is a good time to say, don't. So that's in my head. Yeah, Freddie, I see your hand up.
I think, some key phrases might be helpful. Like, I like the welcome mat, even though it was my idea.
Yep.
I like that, I can picture an actual welcome mat with the rainbow logo on it used somewhere. And also maybe somehow incorporate bridge over troubled waters, something like that,
Troubled waters is a very good phrase.
We're across the bridge from Arlington, I mean, from Washington. When I went to World Pride, you step off the train, and boy, all the subways were rainbow. Macy's was rainbow. The Empire State Building was lit up rainbow and turned into transgender colors at night. I mean, it was just amazing. There was some talk also on by the bid of painting 23rd Street, like the whole street, rainbow.
Yeah.
And again, that's where you come into Crystal City. If you're at the airport, you actually come into that street. I always say it's not done till it's overdone.
Right. Yep. Okay, so what I've let's see. So what I've got here to kind of bring this home. Look where I put my stars. So Diane's going to talk with the county. And so you're going to talk with the county. And is there a way? So after you have kind of that initial conversation, would there be a way for you to can you email the group and kind of report back on kind of?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do, I mean, it's already end of January, so we don't have tons of time. I will ask to get on the agenda at our next meeting. We meet once a month, so it's probably in 2 weeks. So as soon as we have it, I will report back to the group and see what goes. I'm still a little confused about the response from the board. So, so it's board not okay. So are they saying in private they're interested, but in the group lukewarm? They don't want to. I mean, I'm not being coy. I'm just trying to understand. I can go back and watch the board session to own judgments, but I was just curious, especially since somebody had the conversation with Taka. So I guess that was you, James, not too long ago.
So here's my take, not from him, but from what I've been hearing sort of a bit since then. My sense is that there is a concern about the county standing out. That we suddenly become a target that isn't very far away from the targeters.
Right.
And by standing up too loudly and Kellen's hearing the same thing I'm hearing.
Okay.
So that's my sense of it is they just don't want to paint a bullseye on Arlington County by their language.
Okay.
Like
That's helpful.
like all of us right now, they're afraid. You know.
Yeah, and so
Well,
it seems like
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I mean, I get the fear, but I don't think this is the time to stand down or, give up in
No,
advance or,
it's
I
not.
mean, so I think being respectful of their position, but then going ahead and doing what we can, because this is, these rights are still the law of the land until they're not. And I think we should reinforce that in whatever ways we can.
It sounds
Yeah,
like
'cause-
we have an ally in Takis.
yeah, I think
Well, I wouldn't mind having a conversation with him. I'm a
Yeah.
department director. I'm allowed to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and so I guess to me the the test of the test of how concerning the impetus to not become a target is going to be in the response to specific asks, right? So like we're gonna make World Pride loud proud, and we'll see like how these responses will be telling as we come up with more and more ways to to fortify and to reassure the community. Um, we'll do what we can and get the help we can, and that will be informative. But so getting back on the list. So Diane, you're going to report back when you were able to have the meeting. Freddie, did you say you were having a meeting with bids soon, or did you just have one, or what was?
I just got that email today, and I have to get back. I did get back to them. We're just trying to come up with a day to meet. I think we talked about this coming Friday.
Okay. And so I guess same deal. Do you mind sending the group an update when that does happen, to kind of so we know what direction that's going?
Sure.
And then it sounds like it's a pretty big call on Wednesday. Are there a lot of people in this committee that are going to be on that call, or it sounds like that's the biggest scope call that's coming up with the larger World Pride organizing. So Kim, would you mind giving us a report out on that when that happens?
I believe she said she had to leave. I think she put it in the chat.
Right.
I believe she's left the
Right.
meeting because she's, yeah.
Okay. Is anyone in here going to be on that call? And at least can be. I'll ask her in an email afterwards. But anyone going to be on the call who can
Yeah,
back up?
Samantha, I'm gonna be on the call, so
Okay.
I can. I'm a notoriously bad note taker, but I'll try to rise to the occasion.
Okay.
Diane,
Cool.
I can be your backup. I'll be there too for human services.
Awesome, thank you very much. Perfect.
Yeah. Cool. Very nice. So Lizzie, you can help us out there. And then I guess anyone who's on the call and wants to share thoughts, feel free to, and we'll get a good picture. And I think we'll have some ideas of kind of what we can do to help once, because it sounds like the game board is going to be updated a lot in the next week or two. And so we have some direction we're pointing, and that'll give us some ideas of what we can do to help next. So any last thoughts on World Pride before we move on to kind of the more open conversation, where I intend to do kind of a similar brain dump and then organizing into action item. All right, Dan's hopped off. Thank you so much. Look forward to report outs. Thank you for offering to do those. Excuse me. All right, and so to wrap us up, the last discussion point was just kind of a big what now, right? Because the tone has been obvious in a lot of the conversation, but there's a lot of open avenues on my mind, and I want to just kind of open the floor to kind of rediscuss kind of what we think priorities should be, but also not even just in direct actionable priorities right now, but this is also just, I think, a good time to open the floor and say what what are you most like what are you concerned about? What's on your mind? And then when we get kind of a list of topics, I want to then do a dump of what sort of stuff could we be doing about it, and coalesce that into hopefully some work groups to start making recommendations, more concrete recommendations on what's next. When I was jotting my notes down, the things on my mind are um, HIV and PrEP access, because I know like they're starting to take a lot of very basic info things off of federal sites relating to HIV, relating to PrEP. Shutting down the global HIV assistance is very ominous. And so the both on an insurance side and just general access side and information side, that's on my mind. Obviously, gender affirming care and documentation is on my mind, because I have a passport that that was in the processing state and is now not available in status, and I have a feeling I'm not going to get my passport back for quite a while. And so just documentation and insurance and access to gender affirming care are on my mind. And then specifically when it comes to minors, it comes to trans youth, that's going to be first. That's going to be the first and the worst, and in all kinds of spheres. Is that information availability? I know, like federally, a lot of all that information is being taken off websites. Anything that can be assisted is going away. Even just like individual, like CRGs and resource pages are coming under attack. And as far as as far as ways I'm concerned about compliance in advance would be stuff like like stuff like the county's information page going down before it has to. And so that is something that's an area that I'm wanting to keep to make sure we're on top of. And then just morale, like just making sure that we are here for each other and that we're not spiraling, because it's very easy to panic and it's very easy to get doom and gloom. And so just general morale are on my minds. But I would like to just open the floor, and as specific or vague as you want to be, anyone who would like to share what are you watching out for?
So I wanted to share with this group. Tom and I are both on an LGBTQ advisory group for the Arlington Community Foundation. That's something that's been more recently created, and is a part of efforts they're undertaking to address LGBTQ community needs more. And we discussed, actually just within the last few days, some priorities for the foundation. And the sense was that in Arlington, obviously trans youth and family members of trans people are most stressed and in need, and looking at how can the foundation create some programs that are supportive and helpful to those communities during this time. There was a lot of discussion about sort of a need for intergenerational understanding. This sort of goes sort of more broadly around the benefit of having younger people engaging with more older people in the community and vice versa, to sort of better understand context for kind of how in terms of just society we got to where we got the rights that were achieved over all these years, and for older people to sort of understand the environment and the issues facing younger people. So both those things, the focus on supporting trans youth and family members and sort of an intergenerational dialogue seem to be initial priorities of this group through the foundation.
Yeah, Freddie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, some of these websites that you said are being taken down. Could they somehow be? I'm not the techiest guy in the world, but could they somehow be linked to like Equality Arlington or Equality Nova? I think
Yeah, because there's
some of
like
those.
yeah, because I've had that thought, right? You can't like link them because they're gone, but there are like there's ways to find archives of stuff that has been on the internet. So just kind of like oh, here's some
And
right,
create,
like here's
and create a new
scans
one.
here's scans of everything that went down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will look into that. Okay. Yeah, the history and knowledge is a good one, right? Because it's like I like both directions of that because there's a lot of younger folks don't understand how much better it's gotten in the last like 20 years. And where we came from and what kind of stuff is necessary to keep it there, and then just
that could be part of our mission to like put information out for people like that.
Yeah, because I like like the Pride history walks you can do in like New York, right? Just going location by location and learning history of each spot.
And the foundation has some funding, and I think that's an important contact for us. If Freddie says we want to sort of engage and work together, they're an important outreach that we need to make.
Okay, what was the whole name of it?
It's the Arlington Community Foundation.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I had something to add, if that's okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, so as a parent of a trans kid, I'm involved in some local groups with other parents of trans kids, and there's been a huge flurry of conversations, obviously, since the inauguration about documents and what do I do if my kid's passport application is still in limbo, like yours, Sam, or like my question was, is it too late now to change my kiddo's gender marker in the Social Security office? And did that just draw unwanted attention? There's just all of this, like, we don't know legal stuff.
Right.
So I just think one thing that would be hugely helpful for our Arlington parents of trans kids is to have some, maybe like a call to some pro bono legal help. Like, where can we go to like try to figure out what's the best thing to do, or is there anything that could be done to help the situation?
Yeah.
And the second thing I wanted to add was just a shout out to the superintendent of schools, Dr. Duran, who you might have seen.
Still there? Here we go. You froze for a little bit. I don't know.
Oh, can you hear me now? Am I back?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Anyway, just want to give a shout out to Dr. Duran's recent statement. It was involving that whole issue with the sex offender in the pools. You probably heard about that. But people were trying to make it an issue that the person that identifies as trans. But anyway, in his statement, Dr. Duran reiterated the school's commitment to their inclusive policies and that they weren't going to change them. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Duran and how affirming our schools are. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but it's just very comforting that he is able to or willing to speak out like that, even though it does draw attention. So anyway, back to the first point was just some kind of legal advice for parents who are struggling with what to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and Candace mentioned in the chat, right? Like, is there the possibility of like a legal clinic, right? Like have like an
Yeah.
info session, because I know like immigration rights groups do that, right? Like here's an ID workshop. Here's all the stuff you need to know. It was an event like that or a resource page like that, something that would, yeah.
The foundation has asked the committee members for some feedback in the next few days, and Liz, I'll pass that specifically along.
All right, very cool. Caitlin.
Yeah. Yeah, this thing is, I was also going to say is kind of along like Liz, your point that you were talking about, about like documents and such, especially like for your kid. I was reading something earlier today. I don't know like from this person where they sit on like the political spectrum or not. Because a lot of these like trans folks are very gatekeepy and not very liberal. I think Sam has an idea about what I am talking about, but I can be happy to post if you find that useful. But I just think I really getting like maybe any like legal advice from maybe not just like LSNV, but also like any um attorneys that are currently like kind of dealing with this with clients, getting them to do like a clinic could also be helpful along with LSNV, just because I know given what this administration is trying to target and what they want to do, I think, having them as like, what, yeah, we've experienced this before. This is not the first time. That could be beneficial for getting people to feel a little bit better that might be freaking out. Is like, okay, what now?
Yep.
I think it would just really help to hear from the county board, just the same as we heard from Dr. Duran in the school system. It would just really help to hear from the county board that they have our backs and they are not going to allow the executive orders and the discrimination to affect our Arlington community. I don't know, just some sort of message of support.
On our end, as we advise the manager and directly, like, is that something we'd like to draft and recommend and be like, at least from from the manager side, it would be something, and maybe a little a little peer pressure would come if all the cool kids are doing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to hear some kind of a statement from them.
I wonder if there's a way to see if other commissions can support that. Like if we support write a letter, would other commissions sign on?
So the commission's so the commission writing a letter of support and getting others to do it. That's a.
And I'm sorry if I could come back to the prior topic briefly about the know your rights and legal advice clinics, et cetera. I just checked on the Equality Virginia website because they've done a series of clinics like that over the years. They've typically done several per year around Virginia, different parts of the state. I don't see anything on the website currently, so nothing currently scheduled for those kinds of events.
But maybe we could request one.
Yeah, I know that they've done sort of had a regular schedule of that in prior years, so it's a possibility.
Nova Prism Center just put on a legal resources fair for Fairfax County. I went and I got contact information for people that like lawyers that are working on this, people that have like name change and gender marker change guides, people that are willing to like help front the cost. for like people that can't afford it. So maybe another idea would be to reach out to Nova Prism Center and see how they set that up. To my understanding, they are moving to like a Seven Corners, which I'm pretty sure is still Arlington County. So yeah, they might be able to help organize some of that.
Very cool.
And it's not, I'm sorry, it's not local, but the Pride Center of Maryland has an ongoing series of clinics. So this is something that they've just introduced within the past year, but it is ongoing. So if it's helpful to sort of see what they've done and how they've done it, that might be a contact as well.
Right, because like the state level stuff hasn't really changed, right? Like when it comes to like changing your birth certificates and whatnot, that's still at the state level and it doesn't really change. It's the federal stuff is the stuff that's instantly changing. So that advice should be relatively universal.
And I think also in these times, you know, a key part of this is getting the information in front of the people who actually need it. So
yeah. Topic wise, anything else anyone would like to raise? So in that case, to start winding us up, just looking at themes, looking at topics, and trying to get a few get some action items here. What I've got down on these different topics, stuff like I'm curious on y'all's thoughts when it comes to like medical access, but gender affirming care, but also like like the HIV and PrEP stuff, because I know like public health has been working on an HIV awareness campaign, stuff like that. I'm curious, I guess, how a threat does that feel Arlington wise, and is there something like is it worth? Are there proactive things to keep that information, to keep that safe? Is that something that we should be thinking about, or is it that's mostly if it's state and county level? I think I don't think our clinics and our stuff is at risk.
Is the request that we just want to make sure things aren't changing? Because Lizzie and I are at DHS, so we can both have our pulse on what's going on at public health and whether or not there are changes. And we can also make sure that the information, right, is staying on the websites. And if you find there's a lack of information somewhere, we can maybe, increase the types of information that we have.
Yeah, and I guess just kind of, like we said, be prepared to compensate if as federal stuff gets taken down. But if we have the information up there, it's good. So maybe that is the ask, right? Just keep an eye on it and kind of be tasked with reporting if anything changes and if any fights start happening to change it. Because I guess the thing I'm worried about from the information standpoint, right, is how far do we take this? Like, well, we don't want to make ourselves a target thing, and do we start? If anyone starts quietly trying to take some resources down, I think that's where we alert each other and kind of sound some alarms.
For what it's worth, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, rest assured, if the program is still active and exists for Arlington County, the website will likely very much stay up.
Yeah.
And if there's risk to those programs, we'll let you know. We'll be advocating at that level.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And it's really, to me at least, it's hard to imagine that there would be termination of programs that are aimed at protecting the public health. I mean, that's self-defeating. Yeah. So that just, we should obviously keep an eye on things, but it's a little, I understand with PEPFAR, the program where we're funding antiretroviral medications for people, particularly in Africa, that came under the rubric of foreign aid. So, and the whole foreign assistance, all of them are currently under review. Apparently there was no one place where anybody could actually see what all of our foreign aid programs are. So I expect that will be that will not be ended or restricted. I mean, again, it would be self-defeating, but we'll have to see. But
And then as far as a lot of the topics on documentation and IDs, especially when it comes to transgender issues, it looks like getting a task force of sorts together to get to look into getting a clinic of some kind in Arlington, and maybe like a resource page that can be shared around would be helpful. On the folks that were involved in that conversation and had contacts, we had it was James, there was Sam Barnes, and Candace and Liz. Would y'all be open to kind of putting heads together and kind of figuring out what a step would be to work on that? And I can help with this because I know I've got some connections around these as well. Would y'all be open? Is there anyone else who would like to be on kind of a task force for legal clinic and potentially info page?
Sure, I'm into that.
Happy to work on that. Yep.
Cool.
FYI, we have done in the past, and I believe we're still doing HIV testing and PrEP at Freddy's.
Okay. Is that like with what's involved in that? Who's the partners on that?
I'd have to ask Tony.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
We use the middle bathroom and do that periodically.
Oh yeah, that should be on like event pages. I'm sure it is, but that's good to know.
I was also going to add, you had mentioned, healthcare for trans youth and minors. I don't know if folks are using the teen clinic, but I can verify that's a safe place for kiddos to keep going and young people. And then maybe if it is, that should be something we're publicizing more, because I know that there are some protections for young people to go to the teen clinic for their where they don't have to have an adult consent or parental consent. They can still get a lot of resources there. So I can talk with them about their staff and gender affirming care and whether or not that would be a safe place.
Yeah, because I know, like, when it comes to, for me, when it came to gender affirming healthcare, right? Like, just finding a doctor to go to that didn't freak me out, that I didn't get primary care for a good while, much longer than was advised, because I didn't know how to start, because, I didn't know, is this guy going to be chill or not? And I finally went to the Inova Pride Clinic, because then I knew they weren't going to be weird. And so if there's a way to, like, get a thumbs up from them and some sort of bullet on a website somewhere, that would ease a lot of minds. I like that.
Yeah.
Along those lines of like making sure that they have the capacity potentially for like an increase, like if they need to get volunteers and stuff, because I'm sure like lines are about to start getting really long. Yeah.
Like the passport line was.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last thing I had was get a task force of some kind to figure out on our end, on the county manager's end, and on the advisory committee's end, what does a statement of county support look like, so that get some proactive voices in from the county of like, hey, we're watching out for this, we're doing things, we have your back, to see what we can make happen, at the very least on our end, because I'll say it. And see if we see how much sign on we can get. I don't mind heading up this task force. Let's see, Candace, you mentioned it, so I think I'll send an email with us. Is there anyone who would like to be on a statement of support, or a letter to the manager task list? Task list? That's not right. Task force. That's the word I was looking for. Liz, all right. All right, and if you're interested, just send me a line. But all right, James is heading out. Thanks for coming. It sounds like, so just to recap, and we'll recap in an email and in the minutes. But we've got those task force. We got those task force. We got a few folks heading to meetings in the next couple of weeks to see what the game board looks like for World Pride. So I think I'll send some emails to the teams that we discussed, and I think we're in a pretty good. I think we're in a pretty good spot. It's gonna be an interesting few years, and I feel a lot better about it knowing that we have us sticking our heads together, and hopefully we can we can make things safer and reassure and just kind of help folks not freak out. I think like item one is help folks not freak out, and so I'm glad we're talking. This helps me not freak out. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the order before we close out?
Thank you for leading such a productive meeting.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to give a big thanks to Liz and Elizabeth. I was kind of dropping the ball earlier on getting some of this together, and there was a lot of help and I promise to be more on the ball going forward. But yeah, thank you. I'm very. I think we got a lot done, and I feel good.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Thank you, everybody.
Look
Have a
forward
good.
to- Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, look forward to walking down a rainbow 23rd Street with y'all.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also I'll send an email kind of locking because we should lock down when we meet. I'll send an email with like a doodle poll or something so that it's less not on such short notice and we can actually book a room.
Do we need an official motion to adjourn? If so, I so move.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? But it sounds like the ayes have it. Yeah. Okay. Ayes have it. We adjourned at 7:57 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. All right. Okay, well, thank you so much.